across the country, is worrying quite a number of Nigerians. However, the Northeast, some people would say it's on the down low. Some people would say it's on, maybe things are not being reported as they ought to be reported, and that's why we think that it is on the down low. Perhaps the situation is a little stagnant right now. What exactly is the true situation of things? Let me start with the coordinator of the Goza Christian Association. Can you give us a situation report of what it is like in the Northeast, at least from where you live currently?
The issue of insecurity in that axis, can I say, from Yola down to Maiduguri, especially that from Goza to Maiduguri, is getting not quite better, if I may use that word, because you cannot move Maupe in a free scenario from, let's say, Limankara to Goza, 10 kilometers, with your heart at ease. You cannot move from Goza to Pulka at ease. And then down from Bama to Goza, or Goza to Bama, that's 35 kilometers. Anyway, it's better than from Pulka to Goza now. The only free place we have in that axis, especially in the whole of Goza local government, a place to stay for now, is just the 3 towns, Goza, Limankara, and Pulka, out of 52 towns of the whole local government. Lassa, in Askira local government, and its environment too, I'm always getting a report from there. It's a horror.
But some people will say that, isn't it better than how it used to be? There was a time when you couldn't even go to even the communities you're mentioning, Goza, Limankara, and even Pulka. That there were times when those places were no-go areas, but at least now you say that out of 52 communities, 3 are inhabitable.
Oh, well, the 3 areas has been quite peaceful for a long time, even though the coming of the new president, Buhari, has increased the peace in those 3 areas. But the problem is they have been overstretched. Because by the time you are saying Goza people go back home, they don't have a place to stay actually, even if they go home. My house, my friend's house, have been occupied by people from those 49 villages. Because when Boko Haram dispersed people out of Goza, people ran away through Cameroon, Mubi, and the rest. And then when there are no much people to rule upon, they now went to all those neighboring villages to rule over them, and they now run into those towns, the 3 towns, where heavy securities are there. So they have occupied the houses of the original dwellers. So if you ask me to go back home, I will go and meet a lot of people in my house, and I can't chase them out because their villages are not habitable. I am safer here. At least I can endure a little bit until maybe, by the grace of God, when peace, finally comes to the other villages, so the other people will find a place to stay.
2 days ago, Alhaji, or was it yesterday, you had cause to respond to, I think it was the Bishop of Yola Diocese, who had said that the president, as Commander-in-Chief, is sleeping on duty. you took strong objection to his term, and you said, no, that is not the situation. But he was referring to the situation in the Northeast. You were also very quick to commend his efforts, so far so good, in helping to bring peace and stem the tensions that could have arisen as a result of the crisis that, came, the Boko Haram crisis. But nonetheless, when it came to this, to his comments that it appears the commander-in-chief could be sleeping, you said those comments were not fair. But given the situation on the ground, if that is how the people feel, shouldn't their cries be listened to?
Well, I think with the due respect to the bishop, yes, as you said, he had done commendably well in the past, absorbing all of those IDPs, feeding them and supporting them. The point we want to make is that the job is not finished. Because if communities are using weapons against each other, when they quarrel, instead of sitting down, around community leaders to resolve their differences, it then tells you that community leaders, including religious leaders, have a duty to come in. It's easy to look at President Muhammadu Buhari in Asorokia in Abuja and say, well, you are responsible. Yes, he's responsible because he chose to lead. And so therefore, it stops on his desk. However, nothing absolutely absolves community and religious leaders from interfacing with communities that had in the past lived as one and peacefully. And without pushing the point to forward, we made the point that a bishop from a neighboring state was being imported into this domain to help in causing peace between people. So the question then is, who actually is sleeping?
So you think that perhaps the religious leaders in the state could be complicit?
I'm not in any way suggesting, I'm not saying that. I said from the beginning that the job is not complete. And more needs to be done, and the expectation is that all of them, all of the communities, because they're listened to by the people, they need to come forward and do more talking to reconcile communities. The army will go, they will shoot, they will calm down things, but the people will continue to live together. So that's the point we're making.
I know that in that statement you referred to warlords. I mean, you talked about, community leaders being afraid to call out the warlords in their midst for fear of their lives. But, some people will say it depends on what the cause of the crisis is. For instance, we know that just before the elections, there were some areas of Borno State that had erupted in some amounts of violence. Even the governor's vehicle was not spared. I mean, there were times when he said, just to show that he's not afraid, he will go back to those communities in a vehicle that was not bulletproof. We understand that in Yobe State, the eve of the elections, a day before was it the presidential or the governorship elections, there were attacks. I think even the governor's convoy in that state was also said to have been under attack. In Adamawa State is another kettle of fish. We understand that there are communal clashes, but then we also know that, we still hear the sporadic. What we hear more, sadly, is, communal clashes, or sometimes villages being ransacked by bandits, without just cause, so to speak. In all of this, are you not lumping everything together when you say that community leaders should be intervening or should, have the courage to call out the warlords in their midst? What about the ones where this is not warlords, where this is perhaps what you like to call the remnants of Boko Haram still attacking communities and causing mayhem?
I think rather than we generalizing, I think that you or perhaps the media is generalizing. Because there are many colorations. There is no one solution that fits all of these problems. In talking about inter-ethnic, inter-religious clashes and problems, yes, it is right to say that there is a role for community and religious leaders. Take, for example, Zamfara State, where, in fact, in the week of Easter, some village heads were arrested. They were sacked and arrested because they were found to be collaborating with bandits against their own people. So it had gotten to a point where, again in Zamfara, that reports had come to government that rulers would sit down with bandits and negotiate deals that, okay, we won't kill any more of your people. Don't you attack us. In effect, some had been offered sanctuary. So they are safe in this domain, but they can cross over into the next one and cause mayhem. So it cannot just be Buhari, 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 Buhari. No. Communities have a duty to do in this respect. That's what we meant in the statement.
What did you want the communities to do? In a place where it doesn't look like there is any authority and bandits seem to be holding sway, in many instances from what we understand, since you cite the Zamfara experience, they even hold court, they summon community leaders at will, and those ones, for fear of their lives, they have to obey when it doesn't look like government is going to come to their aid. What would you have community leaders do in that instance?
Well, I'm not sure this scenario is quite dramatic as it is. I'm sure it has not. I doubt it has presented itself, to the, the authorities in this country. Yes, he has spoken of communities that had been abandoned, settlements that had been abandoned in the fight against Boko Haram. And it is true that terrorist elements had moved and settled in and had used communities like that as launching pads to attack other places. And as I speak to you now, there's an ongoing operation jointly by Nigeria, Cameroon, Chad, Niger, the multinational joint task force, which they call Enchin Tafki, meaning, in effect, freedom for the lake. Because around the Lake Chad, where some of the settlements have been located, they have holed in and they've been chased and flushed out. Only yesterday, about 3 villages were attacked, raided by the Nigerian army, and a huge catchment of weapons was recovered. And I'm sure the army will be revealing, addressing the nation on these matters.
Mm. Can you tell us, you are a community leader, how are you taking this response by the President's Special Assistant? Do you think that community leaders have let their people down?
It has nothing to do with community leaders, as far as I'm concerned. With the scenario in Chibok, Goza, Madagali, even Michika, has nothing to do with community leader.
That's true.
The problem of Goza, if I may talk about it, is more than what a community leader can do. And if they discover that you have an interest pertaining their life, they finish you overnight. The only thing I think we may think of is that the government should begin to listen to local people like us. We are deeply involved. I have blood relations that are in Boko Haram up to now. I can count more than 50 of my relations, blood, that are in Boko Haram. And I love them as much as the government likes them. What is happening actually is that, no, let's wait until they get repented. No army should shoot anybody first. The Boko Haram has to shoot first before you retaliate or whatever. And before Boko Haram, shoot, he must really aim at you and get you off. Then who will now kill Boko Haram? That's what is happening in Goza. No army has the power to shoot. When you see Boko Haram moving with AK-47, you can't touch him. And 1 kilometer, 500 meters away from Goza, nobody can go there.
Why?
You are to just live within the confine of Goza territory. Once you are outside Goza with 500 meters, your life is at stake.
Why?
It's that dangerous.
Why do you think government is maintaining that stance, if truly that is the stance that government is maintaining?
Maybe human rights are accusing the army of killing, I don't know. But politics is being played somehow again, and that they lack knowledge of what is really happening.
You said 50 of your relatives have joined Boko Haram. Are your blood relatives?
There were over 100.
Why
but
do you
some
think
of them
they
have been killed.
Why
actually.
have they joined Boko Haram?
They joined Boko Haram while in Maiduguri working in the abattoir, you know, selling meat, and so they refused to go to school. And then when Mohammed Yusuf bring his own kind of preaching, they gladly, you know, adopted that. And then, since they are used to using knife and seeing blood all the time, so killing human and seeing blood means nothing to them. So it's just like, this is my job already. They join. And most of them, you know, I still have over 50-something. I lost more than 60. In fact, my uncle was one of their Amir, living in my house in Goza, sending message to me in Abuja, tell my son that I have, you know, captured his house. This is where I will rule as Amir. 4 of my friends was just sitting in front of my house. My blood relation came and showed them, pie, 4 of them. Even while their children were calling his name. Bukar, what are you doing? Bukar, what are you doing? Say, I will finish you, children. And
were you able to speak with them?
Yeah, I do.
You speak with your relatives who have joined Boko Haram?
Yes. Sometimes they do call me from Cameroon. This interview that we are doing, you know, after the interview, they will still call me and say, we've heard what you have said about us. There was a time they warned me and said, if we kill you, we won't kill anybody again in Goza. I know they were just making noise. They were just making noise. So you have to be in there for you to know what Boko Haram is. If you don't have them close to you and then know them. There was a time we had a meeting in Maiduguri. Our elderly person from my, you know, my mother's clan called some prominent of us, and including the high Boko Haram. 8 of them came from Cameroon. We had a meeting. Say, please, my children. He lied flat on ground. Said, I am begging you. Can we go back to peace and fix our homes? And one of them said, is that why you call us? Is that why you call us? If you don't get up within a minute, I'm going to finish you. Baba now stood up. While in the name of peace, I wanted to shake the hand of the guy. It's my younger brother, my younger one. He slapped me. Baba now said, okay, if that's the case, nobody should kill anybody, please, go in peace. Well, nobody was armed, Sha. So we quietly, that was the end of that meeting. They refused, they say, unless we are killed or we win. So this kind of statement, we are politicizing. That no, there will be a time they will repent. There may be a time they will repent, but how long do we wait for them? Or what other effort do we do, you know, in bringing them back to understand, please, the peace is just the ultimate.
You seemed to be in agreement with him when he said that the crisis in Gwoza and Michigan, a number of other communities he mentioned, had nothing to do with community leaders. Is that true?
No, well, it would have amounted to, you know, blaming the victims for, as I said earlier on, we must make the distinction between the war against Boko Haram, which now engages the multinational joint task force, and intercommunal and interethnic crises, which are also present in some of these states. In dealing with intercommunal, communal, and interreligious crises, community leaders have a role to play, have a duty to do in addition to law enforcement. But in the situation of war that is going on against Boko Haram, it would have amounted to attacking or accusing the victim by saying that they're not cooperating with. That's not the idea. No. The army, in collaboration with the neighboring countries, they are doing an exceedingly good job. The job is not complete. They are flushing out. And while I agree with much that he said, and I really sympathize with, you know, the unfortunate situation of himself that he has found himself and family and all of that, it is also true that some of the roads, major roads that had not been used in the past, yeah, it may not be that you can freely, you know, pick your car key and start going to Maiduguri from Goza, from wherever. But there is movement in and around Borno State. Some of it is supported by the military. Markets are there, thriving. We have seen television reports of Goza township itself, you know, on a Friday, and all of the worship, and on Sunday. So it's not to say that 100% of it is back. But advances have been made, and we cannot say that it hasn't happened.
There was a scenario he painted about security agencies, you know, these members of Boko Haram carrying AK-47s and moving freely without being attacked by the military. Is there some sort of, is it policy, or should we say restraint or order to the military to hold fire on people who are obviously not state actors, who are carrying weapons in the open?
I am not aware of this, and I think it is highly improbable. The thing about law enforcement is that they are not present 24 hours of the day in all of these communities because of the inadequacy of their numbers. So yes, in between, it can happen that...
Sorry, Mr. Shehu, I have to interrupt you. We have to take a break now.
Okay.
I'll let you finish your thoughts when we come back from this break.